right. Another one, how to use our money. So it's going to be another punchy one again. So that was just an ad break. And now go back to the real stuff. All right, how to use your money. Okay. So how do we use our money? Sorry, for this one here, I did not have a scripture, but it's basically what we know. So, sometimes ngezulu bathi indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili. So basically that means, how do I translate it? Direct translation. So the road ahead is asked from elders, And what's important is, what I found interesting is, as I was watching all these videos on billionaires and millionaires, even Colonel Sanders, who did the KFC guy, McDonald's, Abu Rockefeller, all these guys. So you watch the videos and you're like, I just want to hear, some great tips on how to make money. And all of them, they tell you tithe, 10% tithe. Not a word of lie, they say tithe. If you're not tithing, you need to, if I get people of the world, they give. So they'll tell you give. If you're not tithing, give. But most of them, it was tithing. If you belong to a church, tithe. So you can't run away from it. If you get to church and prophet is speaking about giving, and you're like, hey, here we go again. But he's basically teaching you the principles of getting wealthy, and it works, So do that, and you'll see that you'll reap the rewards. You'll truly reap the rewards. And also giving. We sometimes don't speak about this subject, but there is a sermon, I think in the beginning of the year, where the prophet spoke about giving. We ask ourselves, why are Jewish people so rich? We ask ourselves why Muslim people are so rich, And it's not because they know a lot of stuff, they're well-educated, but it's more towards giving. Like, they give a lot. They truly give. I remember going to this one conference of Jewish people, and the conference was dedicated to giving. Like, guys, let's come together. We're going to give today. And it was packed. It was a Senton Convention Center. It was packed. And they have a session whereby they tell you testimonies. Okay, this is, so we last year we collected 100 million. This is where the money went to. We assisted so many people in their businesses. So many people were destitute. They lost their jobs and so forth. And I think it ran from 8 till 12. Then 12 o'clock was lunch. And I think they'd raised already 15 million within that period. And they're like, okay, guys, let's go have some refreshments and we'll be back. And guess what we're going to do when we come back? We're going to give. And it was basically based on giving. And I was sat there, I was like, but Lord, these people, they're ruling the world. I mean, Jewish people are like the 1% or 10% of the world's population, but they own 90% of the world, And it's through giving. And I think it's something that it just needs you guys just to revisit that episode again, on giving on the ministry. And then the last topic is on savings and investments. All right, and we are going to Ecclesiastes 11, verses 1 to 2. So that's Ecclesiastes 11, verses 1 to 2. So it says, invest your money in foreign trade, and one of these days you will make profit. Put your investments in several places, many places. In fact, because you never know what kind of bad luck you are going to have in this world. So I'll read it again. Invest your money in foreign trade, and one of these days you will make a profit. Put your investments in several places, many places in fact, because you never know what kind of bad luck you are going to have in this world. So this is the word, ne? Investing is all about discipline and habit. People say, no, where must I invest? How much must I invest? It's fruitless for us to come, let's say as Insensate, and give an investment topic if you do not have discipline in putting money away yourself as well. Just by yourself, to say that, okay, I'm just going to put 100 Rand away, right? If you can't do that, I'm going to come here and we're going to talk about all these fancy products, all these cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins. But if you do not have the discipline to just say, all right, 5 rand away or 10 rand away, how are you going to be profitable in the investments that we present to you? Because guess what? You're going to have, let's say, 10,000 rand laying around. And we tell you about Bitcoin. And it works. And we give you testimonies. And we say to you, it has to be in there for at least 2 years. And now you put your 10,000 rand in there. But because you don't have the discipline of withholding yourself, right? I know. You take the 10,000 rand away. And you're like, I know, Bitcoin doesn't work for me. All right? Or Forex doesn't work for me. You know, most investments, they do work. The problem is ourselves. We do not have the discipline, right? Prophet spoke about fasting. Now imagine, you know, I speak to people like, hey, how was fasting? How have you been fasting? What? Like, ish, I know, I'm calling 10 until 4. I know it was hard. It was hard. You know, you speak to another person, and then I get it now, Holy Spirit has given us the grace to choose the days that you want. Like, no, I can't fast when I'm working. I know I can't fast when I'm sick. And you know, yesterday that line just hit me. Discipline. That word, discipline. Because Sister Bito mentioned good. You can have excuses for anything. There's excuses. My excuse, they don't run out, right? I know I've got my child is sick. Yes, it's an excuse. This is happening. This has happened. But okay, let's look at your money. Do you have money? You know, let's look at the excuses versus the money that you have, right? Because excuses, they will always be there. But you need to be disciplined. And for you to basically have more money to invest, you have to be disciplined. Because you're going to take those money, that money out of that investment that you have. And sometimes it's just to fulfill something that it doesn't even make sense. I know my friends are going to Cape Town, so I want to go there with them. So I know I've got 10,000 rand sitting around in my savings. I was saving it for my child's education, but I'll pay it back sometime. You take it and that's it. And something happens, then you do not have money. Your child now needs to go to varsity. Hey, mtana magna mali. So they can't now. So now you've impacted the child's, future because of that spending or that irregular expenditure that you had initially, right? And that's how bad discipline is. I mean, there's people. That's how I say that, and it's not about how much money you have. There's people who get paid 200,000, 300,000, but they are not disciplined. They don't even have savings. They don't even have savings. But here's a security guard who's diligent with their money, but they can save for you. They can save for their child's education. They can save for, December clothes as well, So in financial advisory, we speak about goal-based investing. Goal-based investing is, sometimes it's hard for you to save, all right? So they say, have a goal in mind. What do you want to do? In the next 12 months, I want to do 1, 2, 3. I want to go to Cape Town. I've never flown before, I've never been on a plane. Okay, in December, I want to go to Cape Town. All right, in 5 years, my child is graduating, so I want to buy them a car or I want to buy them an apartment. So that is called goal-based investing. Have a short term, have a medium term, have a long term. So, and then stick to that goal, right? Start obviously with something that's short. Okay, Lord, I just want to save for 6 months. I want to put money away just for 6 months. And you'll get to 6 months and you're like, but 6 months, it ran quite quickly. No, let's do a year. You get to a year, no man, let's do 2 years. And now you're in the habit of saving, Like we always joke around to say our grandmothers, they always had money. And you never know where it came from. You're like, you go, Koko, 10 rand. Now you're hoop. Here's 10 rand. And you're like, hey, Koko doesn't work. Koko earns a pension, and that's it. Whether you've got a job, you've got a car, you've got a house, but you're always calling Koko, man. Pelu sugar. And but what are you doing with your money? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing with your money? So it all comes down to basically discipline. And that's why I say, if you do not have, savings, start with, let's say, 6 months. You say, all right, I'm going to put away 6 months and be realistic. There's people who used to come and say, they used to get paid, let's say, 10,000 rand. This person is a kid. They've got a bond to pay and so forth. And they're like, I want to save 5,000 rand. You're like, but it's unrealistic for you to save 5,000 rand. Let's do your budget. Okay, but your budget only allows you to save 1,000 rand. No, I want to save 5,000 rand. I'm doing it by faith. You know, but guess what? 2 months down the line, it's tough. They cancel everything. I want my money back. I want this back. I want that back. Because they were not realistic. So there's a term called SMART. So SMART is, it must be simple, right? So your savings, let them be simple. Let them be, so M stands for measurable, attainable, realistic, and timeless, right? So that's what's important. Be smart with your investing. Be very smart with your investing and saving, because I can't say to you, save up for a deposit for your house, okay? But I know you're 100 rand in terms of that you're saving away. Every month you're always living in a deficit, you know. And I'm not saying it's unattainable. Our situations aren't the same. Hence I was saying earlier on, Guti, I'm just, speaking overall, you know. So get into the habit of saving. And even with your children as well, you know, if they're fortunate enough to get money when they go to school, you know, teach them a principle on saving. My son, my daughter, you get 20 rand. Let's put 2 rand away. Let's just put 2 rand away. At first, they will be, no, but why? I can buy a stock suit with that 2 rand. They're like, nah, but you'll see at the end of the month how much it will be. And the nice thing is that they'll see it physically, right? To say, okay, at the end of the month, you've got 200 rand. And they're like, okay, now I can buy a T-shirt. Now I can buy toys. Now I can buy this, you know? So with the information that we have, we also need to share it with our kids as well. And they'll also remind you to say, Mommy, are you saving? How much did you get paid this month? How much did you put away? You know? So let's be in circles where we are, exchanging information. Let's be in circles where we are speaking about savings, because there's tons of savings out there. There's tons of ways to invest out there. There's foreign exchanges, there's foreign investments, there's locals. So, but it's for us just to basically be knowledgeable about those. And with that, I will be closing. Thank you so much. And then just one last scripture to round it off. It comes from Ecclesiastes 11 verse 4. So Ecclesiastes 11 verse 4 says, if you wait until the wind and the weather are just right, you will never plant anything and never harvest anything. So I'll read that again. If you wait until the wind and the weather are just right, you will never plant anything and never harvest anything. So the time is now. It's not month end. I'll do it month end now. So, we'll open to questions. Anyone who's got questions about anything.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
So I wanted to ask pertaining to developing habits. So you spoke about discipline and habits around good spending, right? Money is such a touchy subject.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how do you develop these habits without an accountability partner? Because I don't think people are willing to share how much they owe or what strides they're taking in order to solve for X in terms of their finances.
Yeah.
So how do you develop these habits on your own? Do you hire someone? What if you can't afford that person? What's the chat around habit development?
Yeah. So, all right. So if there's someone that you trust, the easiest way. So if I trust, let's say, my mother or my grandmother, I'll tell them, because it's easier for us to commit, right? Initially, I know I'm going to gym. New Year's resolution, I'm running every day, right? Get to February, you haven't even stepped a foot out of your house, right? So it's habit as well. So speak to someone that you trust, whether a friend, spouse, whatever. Say, listen, I'm going to give you 100 rand every single month, okay? Don't give it to me. I can cry, scream, whatever. Please don't give it to me, right? And they will basically keep you in check. But if you do not have that accountability partner, open something as small as a fixed deposit. So a short one, 3 months fixed deposit. Because you know that, okay, I'm going to put money away in that account and I can't access it. And if I do access it, there's penalties that incur, right? So those are some of the ways basically that you can do. But hence I say, don't do, let's say, fixed deposit, 12-month fixed deposit. Unless you know, okay, I can have the discipline, but rather put your money away initially in something that you can't basically take out. And in that way, it'll help you basically to save, right? I don't know if you call this. Any more questions?
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is, when it comes to, with the policies like educational policies and stuff like that. So I just want to know, because at times, families are different and kids will go astray at times. And whereas you find parents have invested, money for that particular kid and, for their studies, of course, all the parents wants the best for the kids. So what happens if the child, because uthole sebazifake entweni and they end up not studying and, manje as umzali, now you're seeing that your child now is not willing to go, to study. And now manje so ufuna your money. You can see, and now you are told which no, that money you won't get it until the child go be over or by in process again, and you're seeing no progress and nothing is happening. So in that case, siyenza njani umzali? I'm just asking for not for myself,
Yeah,
but
for your friend.
but it won't. I'm declaring in one.
Yeah.
But in a case where parents go through that.
Okay.
So siyenza njani?
What's important is the inception, right? So from the beginning, you need to read the T's and C's of any policy that you get yourself into, any investment policy that you get yourself into. Financial advisors or salespeople will come to you and say, you can put away 500 Rand for your education. It'll be so much when they get to matric, and it'll pay for their fees until they graduate. If they want to do medicine, it'll pay for an additional 4 years, right? And that's the marketing around it. But we do not read the fine print. So then you get to the fine print, like as Umama Payana, then it says we can only distribute these funds when a child goes to a tertiary institute. Now you are trapped because you're like, this kid is not gonna, agafunu kufunda, and there's maybe like 100,000 in there. And you're like, but okay, how do I access this, And then now you can't say, okay, let's forge something with VITs, have a report or an acceptance letter so that they can pay, It's very tricky when it gets to those places. But with every financial institute, there's ombudsman. So ombudsman will basically guide you and say, okay, your child doesn't want to study, but let's fight this. Because it's still money that you had put away every single month. Yes, those T's and C's, but it's not the end of the world, right? So, and ombudsmen, some of them, most of them are free. And each company has a dedicated ombudsman that deals with the issues or the legal issues when it comes to those funds there. But since I say, now let that person take the thing out and say, okay, let me read that policy, because policy documents, yes, we put them in there. So now we just focused on the final amount, but not the T's and C's. So let them read all the T's and C's. You might find there's a loophole somewhere. Maybe they might say, okay, if a child doesn't study, provide certain information that the child does not want to study, come to our offices and let the child confess, physically to say, mina ngisafuna ukustudy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some stuff like that, but for me, it's, go into the information of that policy and better understand that policy with what it entails. Yeah. How is Thami?
Afternoon. Thami, it's to touch on what she asked about old debt. I don't know if you can touch on prescribed debt, because most people don't know that after 5 years, a debt, it's prescribed. 3 years, especially like if you owe a bank and all those things. Like some contractual debts. Yeah. They prescribe, you don't have to pay. Yeah. They can be taken off ITC and all those things. Yeah. You will touch on it, Truth. Yeah, but like just to give people...
Yeah, I think she's best to...
Sorry?
Comment on it now.
Most people, they pay debt that were written off, and they are no longer on ITC, but someone who has what debt collecting company just goes and buys that debt from the bank, and you have to pay for it, and legally you're not supposed to pay for it.
Yeah. As I was saying, for us on our side, you hear a lot of myths. So say it's 3 years, it's 5 years, even with traffic fines, after 5 years they cancel out and so forth. But in terms of, I think that's more on a legal perspective, and I think maybe my sister can comment on that.
The law says that debt prescribes after 3 years. That's the general rule. Now, by that, they mean that from the date that you become indebted, let's say when you started going in arrears of your clothing account or a letter of demand was sent or whatever, from that time, your 3 years starts running. But should the debtor, whether it be Truworths, Edgar's, the bank, or whatever, take judgment against you, issue summons and take a judgment against you, then within that, before the 3 years lapses, and let's say they take a default judgment because you got the summons or you didn't get the summons but didn't act on it, then the listing of the judgment stays on your record for 5 years from the time that the judgment is given. So you might actually have an adverse listing of 8 years on your record, starting from your default and then running into the judgment. And there's one of two ways of getting adverse listings off. Either you settle the debt and the debtor then writes a letter confirming that the amount has been settled, or for whatever reason. You can settle it either on the full amount or whatever you might settle with the person or the company that is owed. And then they'll write a letter that full and final settlement of the debt has been done, and then you submit it to the credit bureaus to update your listing. Or you wait for that period to elapse and then only you go to the credit bureaus that this judgment was listed. Because in the credit bureaus, when you ask for your credit record, it shows when the listing was put on your record. So you can then query it that this listing has been on my record for 3 years, if it's just a bad debt or whatever, or that it's been, the judgment against me has been listed for 5 years now or 6 years or whatever. Kindly remove it because the time period has lapsed. So, yeah.
Just a follow-up. So I don't know accounting jargon. When you say prescribe, do you say...
Okay. Prescription is a term that they use to define or to explain the time within which a debtor can act on a debt or on a claim. It counts for that time period, that 3 years time period, or that 5 years. It's actually the general rule is that any claim prescribes after 3 years, meaning that you have 3 years within which to issue summons. And the only thing that interrupts prescription or that time period is when summons is actually issued. Then by issuing of summons, it means summons that are stamped by the court and then delivered to you. Then that disturbs the 3-year period for the claim to expire. Prescription is expiry. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it will expire after 3 years. The claim on the debt will expire in 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. No, it's on that as well. So, because I get there's myths, so we just want to expel the myths. So when it comes to, let's say, these people calling you, so what I've heard is if they call you and you do not acknowledge, yeah, please.
Like I said, the only thing that interrupts the expiry period or that period for expiry is when they issue summons, right? Now, even if you get collection agents calling you or saying that you've got such and such an amount owing, when are you paying it, and you don't acknowledge the debt, then that period is not interrupted in any way. However, should between the time that the debt becomes due and payable and the time before the 3 years expire, you sign an acknowledgement of debt document, or you verbally acknowledge, because they record the phone calls when they call you, and you acknowledge that, yes, I know I owe you. You've acknowledged the debt. It interrupts prescription. However, there's always technicalities that you can raise and all of that you didn't give consent for the call to be. But that's when you're going to court and you're fighting it now. And you're already in debt, and that's not money you're going to have to spend. So yes, but you see now I feel like we're giving cheat codes on a game now. Rather try to avoid that situation altogether where your debtor calls you. You call your debtor and make the arrangements that suit you better. Because the minute you start getting called, it becomes a slippery slope afterwards. But yes, the presenter is correct by saying that an acknowledgement of debt can interrupt prescription. And that should be conduct on your part, which interrupts it, which helps the debtor interrupt it, whereas the former would have been what the creditor would need to do to interrupt prescription or expiry of the debt or the claim on the debt.
Thank you so much. Well,
Sorry, you know what? I want to ask you a question because I realize that a whole lot of people get themselves into debt review, right? If somebody get themselves into a debt review, in that case, some of the debts are very old, which means now they are busy settling debt that have prescribed already. And the debt review is it's just a forever thing. So let's say for employer-employee kind of relation, how do we assist them? How do we advise? Because obviously money is a very sensitive and a lot of people live in ignorance. So somebody in debt review, how can they come out so that then they can leave the debts that are prescribed and focus on settling the debts that are still current?
Thank you for that question. Now, with debt review, what happens is there's a whole process that happens before somebody goes into debt review. They see a debt counselor. They sit with a transcript of all their debts, including all the listings or if there are any from all the ITC credit bureaus, right? And you find that somewhere along the line, and I've actually worked as a debt counselor when I was a training attorney, and you find that somewhere along the line, as you're querying which debts are valid when you're trying to structure repayments for your client who's over indebted, you find that somewhere along the line, either summons was issued, though they didn't go ahead and take judgment against the person, or you'll find there was an acknowledgement of debt shortly before the debt prescribed, whether in the form of a signed acknowledgement of debt or something like that. So you find that historical debt that's older than 3-5 years is still on the person's list of creditors. That's how usually it happens. And then when it's like that and you're already under formal debt review with the magistrate's court order saying that you're under debt review, the only way the person gets out of debt review prior to actually finishing to pay off everything is going back to the court and saying that when I applied for debt review, this is what my financial situation was. This is what my current financial situation is. I can afford to come out of debt review and service my debts and continue with my life. But it's not going to be an easy, seamless process to just cancel the debt review. The same way the debt review was gone under approaching the court, the person would have to go back to court to cancel the debt review as well. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for that. Sorry for getting into the legal matters, but yeah, I think I've also been assisted with that as well. Because as I say, we speak to this person, they say this, you speak to that person. So I think that's why it's important for us just to have, abantu abafana nawe so. So if you guys have any more questions, if you're shy to ask questions and you're more confident in writing, please send them through to Uslash, and then she'll be able to forward through to us, and then we'll, answer them as best as we can. So thanks a lot for the time. Thanks, sister.